stop.
Today, thousands took a stand against the climate crisis. Protests stretched from Seattle to Tacoma and across the country to New York City. Many were students, but even adults walk off the job to push for change. Now let's get you a live look at this hour. This is Chopper 7 high over Cal Anderson Park, where a rally, that climate strike, is set to begin shortly. We have our KIRO 7's Ranji Sinha on the scene. And Ranji, you've been covering the story all morning long. This is the biggest climate strike so far this year, right?
There is a large crowd here in the park. Just check out these numbers. You can see all the people gathered here. I was at the climate strike back in March. There were about 1,000+ people here for that one. This has far surpassed that. And once again, this was organized by young people.
We were last year at Cal Anderson Park for March 15th.
I first met Grace Lambert at one of the first major climate strikes in Seattle. She's striking again. This time it's much bigger.
We're expecting at least 3,000.
She and her fellow organizers have worked to build a movement and these crowds.
It's very stressful. It's my senior year, so I'm trying to juggle this with swim as well as college applications, which is very tough.
She has a lot of help. Hundreds of students converged on Cal Anderson Park early Friday to set up their day of protest, calling for a fix to climate change.
It's very exciting, though, getting to do this work and getting to see the event come together in the end.
Olivia Schroeder has also worked and spoken at most of the strikes. She will again and admits it's hard for young people to shoulder this, but they will.
I think that it's unfair that this situation was ignored for so long, but I do think that because of the urgency, we are getting it done.
Many of the students here want Congress to seriously consider the Green New Deal, renewable energy prioritized over polluting fossil fuels.
The mayor came today.
Youth organizers say they want to make bold moves to save their future. They can't vote, they can strike.
This is the most important issue, and that even if you're not striking, you should be involved.
And we're not going to stop pushing for that, even if we don't get listened to. We're going to still strike.
Okay. These crowds are expected to march towards downtown. We're seeing right now some people are leaving and already making their way towards that direction. They're going to meet up with workers who also are on strike for change in the climate change issue, and they're going to march towards City Hall. We're live at Cal Anderson Park in Capitol Hill. Ranji Sinha, KIRO 7 News.
Among those workers may be Amazon workers as well. They're also taking part in the climate strike today. This is new video from the Seattle headquarters. More than 1,500 Amazon employees have pledged to walk out a day after CEO Jeff Bezos revealed the company's new climate pledge. Well, there are several other large climate action rallies in the area today. In Everett, there's a rally set to get started this afternoon outside the Snohomish County Courthouse. In Tacoma, people are marching 40 miles to Olympia, where there will be a rally on the steps of the Capitol building later on today. All right.
I'm Steve Bunin with you, King 5 News at noon. This is all part of this global movement with young people really taking the lead, and our Natalie Swaby joining us live from the Seattle rally. Natalie, what a great gathering of people. Looks like you've got adults and kids alike.
So many people, Steve. We're actually in the middle of it all here at Cal Anderson Park, and this is where they say today will not be business as usual because we're facing a climate emergency. Just take a look at the crowd here. We're talking about thousands of people, and they are staging a climate walkout. It's students. There's going to be tech workers joining in this march. Plenty of activists here. They're hitting the streets and demanding action. Now, today we had the chance to talk with two students, Casey and Maya. They attend Roosevelt High School. They're seniors. They're also in the group Seattle Girls in Science Club. And they say that they have been moved by hearing what climate activists have to say, and it made them realize that this is a very serious situation. Just listen.
I remember I was studying for my ACT, and I just thought, why am I studying for an ACT to get into college, to go to college, if I might not even really have a career because the climate is at such a dangerous position right now.
We think it's going to limit like a ton of people's like housing abilities like all over the world, and it's going to make natural disasters much worse. And we think that like it's not a choice to decide that climate change isn't real. And we really want to bring more awareness to everyone about how you just need to accept the facts and realize that it's happening and that we need to act now.
All right, back out live. You're in the middle of it. This is all the people getting ready to march with their signs. Talking with those students, they told me that they have taken steps to improve what they're doing to the earth. They like to use LED lights. They take the light rail. They've asked for compost bins in their classrooms. They want to make sure there's solar panels in their classrooms. They're a part of the Oceans Initiative, helping to save the southern resident killer whales. And they are also going to be a part of this group that's going to start marching here in a matter of minutes. They're going to march from here at Cal Anderson Park all the way to City Hall, and that's where the youth are going to lead the conversation as they talk about this climate emergency. And we're going to be walking with them. We're going to bring you more tonight. 5 News, but for now, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Natalie, real quick, if you could just describe the atmosphere. Is it angry, optimistic, sort of on edge? How would you describe it there?
I think it's a little bit of everything you just said. There are people here who definitely are optimistic that if people act now, that there can be change. But the signs, as you read them, they're being very honest and they're being very blunt and saying that this is an emergency. And you can hear the anger in that, saying that our earth is on fire. That's some of the messages that we're reading as people walk through here. So they hope that this really can lead to change today.
Natalie Swaby reporting live from Cal Anderson Park in Seattle. Thank you, Natalie. So more than 1,000 Amazon workers walked off the job today. Same thing, drawing attention to this cause. They're holding their own company accountable, calling for a reduction in Amazon's carbon emissions, which is something that Jeff Bezos, the CEO, has vowed to do, announcing yesterday a climate pledge to get Amazon carbon neutral by 2030. So hundreds of students and many more adults helping fill the steps at the state capitol in Olympia. One of the teenagers telling the crowd, "We don't need a permission slip to defend our future." Students encouraged people in the crowd to get their schools and communities to make protecting the environment a bigger priority.
It is no longer enough just to change our lifestyle. We need to be changing our communities. It is time to stand up and speak up for a livable, breathable planet.
So a handful of state representatives were on hand for this rally in Olympia down in Thurston County. Meanwhile, nobody is a bigger believer of climate change and the need to do something than Governor Inslee, who made it the hallmark of his unsuccessful presidential campaign. He's making the rounds today, was in Seattle this morning, now heading east on I-90 to Spokane for a climate change rally at Riverfront Park there. A group called 350 Spokane organized that rally, pushing for the Green New Deal, calling for more green jobs and infrastructure as well. This, of course, a global movement. We have video out of Paris where thousands of students took part as well in this huge march throughout there this morning. One American student studying in Paris describes why she was part of this crowd.
I think it's very specific to us that we deserve a say in what's going on in our future. And although we're not the ones making policy right now, we know that this is the world that we have to live in, and we're going to deal with the consequences when we're older.
So let's take you from Paris to Sweden, where thousands of young people, mostly marching through the streets of Stockholm. Ask not what our planet can do for you, ask what you can do for our planet. That's where this youth climate movement started, thanks to 16-year-old Greta Thunberg, who started skipping school every Friday to protest in front of the Swedish parliament. Thousands of people in Washington, D.C. doing the same, protesting with signs and banners and chanting in the sunshine, coinciding with the UN Climate Action Summit on Monday in New York City. 12:05, new at noon. Washington is one of 23 states suing to stop the Trump administration from meddling in state emissions standards. On Thursday, the administration revoked California's authority to set its own emission standards. This lawsuit claims that the administration's action fails to respect states' authority to set stricter standards if they want, in an effort to protect public health how they see fit.
Hello, welcome to World News Today. Millions of people, including many children, have been taking part in demonstrations around the world, demanding tougher action on climate change. Well, this was the scene in New York a little earlier, which is the latest city to see another so-called climate strike by pupils skipping school to join the protests. The teenage activist Greta Thunberg, who protested alone outside the Swedish parliament last year, you remember, to draw attention to climate change, is leading the demonstration. And similar protests have been seen in cities in more than 150 countries around the world. So, with the story of one of the biggest coordinated global protests on record, let's hear from our correspondents around the world.
There have been more than 100 events across Australia as this country helps to kickstart a global day of action. Thousands and thousands of people have gathered here in Sydney to campaign for what they're calling climate justice. I was talking to a high school student, a young teenager, and she said that she was too scared to think about ever having children because the future was far too bleak. What they want is for Australia to have no new coal, oil or gas projects and also to shift to 100% renewable energy. Will the Prime Minister Scott Morrison be swayed by all of this? Probably not. In the past, he says that there has been too much activism in classrooms.
When do we want it? Now! I'm in New Delhi in front of Ministry of Environment and Sciences, where several hundred people are protesting against the climate change. They have joined the global climate strike. It has started off with just a few dozen people, but the crowd quickly swelled into several hundred, with mostly school children and college students.
What do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it? Now! Do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it? Now! The time is now!
Over the last hour, there have been hundreds of people who've been gathering here, many of them with their homemade placards, as you can see from here. Obviously, there are many students who are from school-age children. We've also got university students, but this is, of course, the first time when adults have been also asked to join the protest. You might be able to hear in the background that the speeches have started at 11 o'clock. They're due to go on until 3 o'clock later this afternoon. Now, among those who are here, who are explaining why they're here, we can be joined now by Lola and by Fatima. Lola, you are from the UK Student Climate Network. Lola, why are you here?
I'm here because I believe climate change is the defining issue of our generation, and if we don't come up and fight for the policies that we want, for a Green New Deal, for educational reform and for political empowerment of young people, our planet is on the line.
There are hundreds of protesters here, climate change, climate activists who have come out. We're in the middle of Nairobi. They're marching towards the government offices. They have a petition to present there. A number of issues that they want to highlight here in Kenya: protection of water towers, prevention of deforestation, as well as asking the government to stop a project to exploit coal for the first time in this country. They say that coal energy is not clean, and that is not the way Kenya should be going. Here in Africa, the impact of climate change is already being felt, even though it contributes significantly less to climate change itself.
So that's a flavour there of the protests being taking place right around the world. And as we heard, it's the Swedish teenager Greta Thunberg. She's become the voice of the climate protest movement in many ways. And she was asked if she ever thought she would have been able to galvanise so many people.
This is not only my voice, this is the voice of millions of people all around the world. But I think it is because we are young, and we are the ones who are going to have to live with this in the future, and we are not the ones who have caused this crisis, and just that we speak truth to power. We are not worried about how it will affect our reputation or our income or things like that, but we say what we want to say, and we say how it is. We are not afraid to become unpopular in that sense.
Greta Thunberg there, and Samira Hussein is in New York for us. Hi Samira, so we've been watching the clock, almost the world spinning round, the protests take place in all the different time zones. Attention now focused on New York. What's happening there?
Well, look, the protests began earlier this morning and it's been going on for several hours now. In fact, we marched from one area of New York and came down to Lower Manhattan. Here we are in Battery Park, and there are thousands and thousands of people. And the energy here is certainly very jovial. I mean, we've just had some performances from young music singers that have really been sort of getting the energy of the crowd up. But I would also say that there is still a certain amount of urgency, because at root, what has brought all of these people together is climate change and the real need to act. And you certainly feel that importance, or certainly get that from the people that I've spoken to here.
And in different parts of the world, there's been different bits of controversy about school children going on so-called strike. There's been some criticism. What's the feeling there in New York?
The New York public school system had allowed all of their 1.1 million students to be absent to take part in this. But of course, this is the United States, and a lot of things often become politicized. So it was also made clear by the New York public school system that teachers were not allowed to participate because this could be seen as a political action. So a real sign that, yes, on the one hand, you see that this has been open to students to participate in. But on the other, you certainly see that there is a strong political tinge to this climate change issue. And that was certainly made true by the statement made by the New York public school system.
And Samira, just briefly, just mark our card for us. What's expecting to happen there over the next couple of hours?
Well, over the next few hours, we're going to hear some more speeches and more people talking, and really just trying to take advantage of the energy here. Look, it is by design that this protest is happening just before the UN Climate Summit, when world leaders will be coming here to New York, and people will be asking them for concrete plans, and not platitudes, but real action that can be taken to try and stem the curb the flow of climate change.
Okay, Samira Hussein in New York, thanks very much for bringing us up to speed with everything that's happening there.
Eastern on C-SPAN, online at cspan.org, or listen on the free C-SPAN radio app.
Now, youth activists are holding a rally in Washington and around the country, calling on elected representatives in Washington and world leaders to take actions to address climate change. Live coverage here on C-SPAN.
All right. They didn't do it for the man, didn't do it for the world, didn't do it for the high-powered supernova. They didn't do it for the war, didn't do it for the beast, didn't do it for the... They didn't do it for me, didn't do it for the love, didn't do it for the priest down on his knees. That didn't do it for the... Didn't do it for the... Didn't do it for the... We did it for the money. They did it for the money. They did it for the money.
They did it for the money!
They did it for the money!
They did it for the money!
They didn't do it for the boy, didn't do it for the girl, didn't do it for the motherfucker, sister, daughter. Didn't do it for the priest, didn't do it for the beast, didn't do it for the me and Jesus. They didn't do it for me, didn't do it for you, didn't do it for the... Down on his knees, they didn't do it for the weed, didn't do it for the... Didn't do it for the... They did it for the money. They did it for the money. What did they do it for the money? They did it for the money. Thank you so much. My name's Caroline Rose. I stand with everybody up here. There's a fundamental problem with our relationship with money in this country. Money is stitched into the fabric, the foundation of our society. I do think it's important to have events like this and stand up to power. We live in a society where money is power, and it dictates everything that we do. And when you stand out here, you're standing up to money and power. Putting people first. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Give it up one more time for Caroline Rose! Okay, so we're going to be a little interactive now with the audience, so I'm going to want all of this side to yell for me! Say it again! Come on! Middle!
Ethan! I think this side can do better!
I don't think so.
This side can definitely do better!
Okay, we're going to be introducing our next speaker, who's another representative from California, Nanette Berrigan. Can you please come up?
Are you ready for some change? I am too, my friends. This is the moment right here, right now. The alarm bells have been sounding for an entire generation, but this is the moment for you to be heard. You're being heard across the city, across this nation, and across the entire planet, which is literally dying to be heard. And it's beautiful to look out into this amazing sea and see our climate youth making the change and causing this movement to move forward. Are you ready? And we're sending the message that we're doing this in an urgent way, and we want climate action when? Now, we don't lack the science to know the climate crisis is here. Nor do we lack the brain power to heal our wounded planet from generations of abuse and neglect. But what we do lack is the will to act on it. You are all going to change that, right? And that's why having your voices here today is so critical and so important. Because like those in power who refuse to act quickly enough or boldly enough, like those in industries who place profits over the environment and over public health. And so I want to be here with you to know that we are going to continue to call out loud, rally, and show up until our voices are heard. Is that right? Well, don't stop and keep it going, and I will do the same in the United States Congress. Thank you for showing your power in numbers, your power in voice, and to our climate youth, let's do this!
Give it up one more time. There we go. Come on.
So next up, we have some amazing youth activists. They're suing the federal government.
Yeah!
They are the Juliana v. U.S. lawsuit. We have Kelsey Juliana, Levi Draham, Jacob LaBelle, Avery McCrae, and Jerome Foster will be joining as well.
Thank you so much for coming out today. A lot of gratitude from the bottom of our hearts. We are the youth who are suing the U.S. government, our government, because we believe that we have a constitutional right to a climate capable of sustaining human life, and the courts are agreeing with us. Our government is paying over $20 billion every year to fossil fuel companies and permitting pipelines like the Dakota Access Pipeline in North Dakota and the Jordan Cove project in my hometown of Oregon, near my family farm. If our government continues to promote dark money and fossil fuels over our lives, we won't have an economy to grow up in. We won't be able to grow our crops. we won't be able to raise our children in a safe community, and we won't be able to have clean water and a livable climate. Listen to the science and protect life. Thank you. Pass it on to Kelsey.
We are on a timeline. This is a fight for our lives, for our security, for all future generations to come. They want us to just sit quiet. They want us to just sit in school and learn about a future that may not exist. We are here because our generations past have put us in an unstable place. And you know what? I'm sick of hearing about their actions. I'm sick of their apologies. I'm sick of their shame. And I'm sick of the future that they put on us. Period. And a blue. I'm sick of it, and so are all of you. And we are not here to talk about our sacrifices and our doom and gloom and not existing. We are here to create. We are creating this movement every day because every day of inaction drives more action from us. Okay, Levi, hold it up. Who here is psyched? Sorry, couldn't hear that. That's just a little bit better. Let's hear it! Alright, who here is not so excited to hear that we may not have a future? I could hear that! Yeah! Alright, everybody, let's go and we're never gonna give up until we get climate action! What do we want? Climate action! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Climate action! When do we want it? Now! Thank you. Hold it sideways. Jerome.
My name is Jerome Foster II. Thank you. But what I want everyone to do who's standing here in the front of the Capitol, I want you to look left. I want you to look right. I want all of you to understand that we are all united in this crisis. All the activists that have spoken here and that will continue to speak are fighting for all of us. We're fighting for your children. We're fighting for your sisters. We're fighting for your brothers. We're fighting for your mother and your father. We're fighting for every single person that has died because of the climate crisis. We're fighting for every single person that has been displaced from the climate crisis. Our generation has been the victims of an entire climate crisis that has destroyed and decimated entire communities, entire people. But politicians don't understand that. As millions of young people strike all around the world, all of the politicians are just acting as if they care. They're acting as if they care about our future. But we need real action to follow this. All around the world, we're seeing natural disasters affecting billions of people. People around the world are dying, but we're acting as if we don't care. We're acting as if nothing is going to work. So we have to actually make sure that we have legislation that will stymie the climate crisis. We must make sure that we're holding our elected officials accountable. We must make sure that we're holding our corporations accountable. Before you leave today, I want every single person here to call their member of Congress. I want every single person here to hashtag Fridays for Future. I want every single person here to talk about the climate crisis. I want this to be the #1 issue of the 2020 debate. Right now, every single politician is quaking in their seats because we're showing them what real action looks like. We're showing them what the people look like. We are showing them what democracy looks like. So when I say show me what democracy looks like, you say this is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
I want you to remember the faces here. I want you to understand that everyone here is a part of the movement. Everyone here in this audience, everyone here at the organizers are a part of this movement. And we must act as such. After this, you cannot just go back to your jobs. You cannot just go back to your schools. We have paused the entire earth for the climate strikes. We will pause the earth again every single week. You must join this movement. You must be here every single Friday. You must be a part of the revolution because this is a time for change.
Give it up again for all those people suing the federal government.
Yeah, so just thank everyone.
So we just wanted to quickly acknowledge all the organizers that worked hours and hours countlessly. They're all sitting back here. They're up on stage. He did a lot of work. So we all are organizers, and activism, this movement isn't just about activism, but it's also about organizing and the work that we put into it. So a huge round of applause for all the people that put this together. So next we want to introduce one of our organizers who worked on finance and recruitment. She's an amazing young individual from Earth Uprising, Wendy.
Yes, no way!
Okay, hold the mic close on.
Like this?
Like yeah. Like that. Like this, okay?
Okay, got it. Hello, everyone. Okay. It is so amazing to see all of you here today and to be here with all of you. Every time I walk the streets of DC or chant the chants, it makes my heart so full of pride and hope. It is and always will be the honor of my life to strike with each and every one of you today. Like this? Okay. More? Okay. Is this better? My name is Wendy Gao, and I'm 17 years old. I'm an Asian American climate activist. I'd like to acknowledge my privilege and my background because my climate story is vastly different from the ones that you've heard today and you will hear later on. Indigenous people and frontline communities are and will continue to be most affected by the climate crisis. Many are fighting for their lives and their rights today, and they have been for centuries. So we recognize this and we amplify their voices and their work. So while we strike in solidarity with our brothers and our sisters, we also know that the climate crisis is different from any problem that humanity has ever faced before because we know that it affects everyone. And everyone has a climate story, whether you know yours yet or not. My parents are Chinese immigrants and they sacrificed everything to come to America so my sisters and I could have a higher education and a better life than they did. My sisters and I understood this, and we've always wanted to do well in school to make sure their sacrifices are worthwhile. My education and my future has become my end goal, as it should, because I'm 17, and I should just be a full-time student. College applications should be the only thing that I'm worried about. But in 2018 of October 2018, the IPCC released a report telling governments they have 12 years left to act on the climate crisis or face devastating consequences. I remember reading the report and feeling very small because all my hopes and dreams had shrunk in an instant. By the year 2030, I will be 29 years old, which isn't enough time for me to become the first Asian American Supreme Court Justice. Become a retired history teacher. That's why I'm here today and why many of you are too. But we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be here. Youth climate activists should not exist. Greta Thunberg should not be the figure that she is today. But we are.
History shows that when young people act and come together, our voices are loud and our actions are powerful. We know that when we strike, we win. So today we strike because today we win. Today we'll win.
Hey everybody, so we're really, I don't know if y'all heard, but we have Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Not right now, though. Not right now.
Not right now.
Not right now.
She's coming later. She's doing some congressional things, doing a little thing, but she'll be here later to speak to us.
So Rev Yearwood.
Just can we confirm Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Pressley?
Yes, Ilhan Omar. Yes.
Ilhan Omar will also be coming as well. Ayanna Pressley. We have 3/4 of the squad here.
Okay, we're gonna introduce Rev Yearwood.
Okay.
Okay, now our next speaker is a DC local who's been working and organizing youth for a long time. I'd love to bring to the stage Rev Yearwood. Come on. Come on, buddy.
Help me up. How are y'all doing out there? So, I just want to say this real quick. First, I want to lift up, as we get started, I just want to thank these amazing organizers and leaders. You might know I didn't just say, obviously they're young, I didn't say youth leaders, because these are the ones who should be leading the climate movement. And so, first let me lift up, while I am based in DC with the Hip Hop Caucus, and give it up Hip Hop Caucus. I'm originally from Louisiana. I actually kind of love you get more love for Caucus than Louisiana. I just don't know why, but I actually kind of love that a lot. But one of the things there that's so important in this process, I want to lift up those right now who are dealing with floods in Houston, those in the Bahamas. Today is the 2nd anniversary of Puerto Rico. I want to lift up those who are still dealing with Superstorm Sandy, Hurricane Irma, Maria, those who are dealing with the wildfires in California, the wildfires in the Arctic. What is going on, still those who are suffering in Florida. Yeah, you can make some noise for that, but we're going to make sure to give them some love. I just want to say two things, and I want you to help me with something. So the first thing is this. This is just the beginning. For the folks from Zero Hour, and my dear, yeah, give it up, come on, 0 Hour, shout out. My amazing friend Nadia and the whole crew and everybody else. Obviously, I've been stuck with sunrise on my chest here, so that's all love. But I want to say these two things. One, you are the David that will beat the Goliath. You are the David that will beat the Goliath. You will beat the fossil fuel industry. The second thing to that is never forget this. Organized people beats organized money every single time. And so my last thing, I need y'all to do this. Some of you might know this, some of you may not know. I used to be a U.S. Air Force officer, and I was protesting the war in Iraq, and I was beaten literally by police right around the corner here when we're doing a protest. No, we don't got to do that. That happened, and it was what it was. But this is the point. Since that time, I've had a really bad leg, and I don't move that much. But I want to take from you your youthful energy to jump. I can't jump, and so on this place, Nadia and Natalie, where I was beaten, I want to jump with y'all. Can I jump with y'all? So if y'all can stand up. Yeah! Come on, stand up.
I'm going to stage.
No, come on stage, come on stage. up here. Come on with me.
Not everyone. I don't want to break this.
I might need some help. Don't let me fall off the stage.
We'll just have some.
So, the way it goes is this. I'm going to say, now you got to say from your heart. When I say climate, you say strike. I say climate, you say strike. I say climate, you say strike. And then when we start jumping, we're going to jump. Climate strike, climate strike, climate strike. Y'all got that? Are y'all ready? So this is the test. Climate strike! That's not good enough. They got to hear you inside. Come on. That's not good enough. Climate strike! That's a little better. A little bit. Come on, make it happen. Climate strike! 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 Come on! Climate strike! I hear you! Climate strike! I hear you! Climate strike! I hear you! Climate strike! Come on! Climate strike! Come on! Climate strike! Go! Climate strike! Climate strike! Climate strike! Climate strike! Climate strike!
Okay. Thank you again to Rev Yearwood for hyping us up. Give him a round of applause. One more. Come on. Nadia, get your butt up here. Okay, wait. Give me a sec.
All right, let's take a second to sit down.
A little breather. Some of us have asthma.
To sit down? You don't have to sit down.
You don't have to sit down.
You're good.
Okay, so at every event where there's two MCs, it's pretty much a tradition to figure out who the better MC is. Okay, so we're gonna have to do a little scream contest. We'll start with Nadia. So if you think Nadia is the better MC, give her some noise! Okay, now me. I think that was a pretty clear win for Nadia, so we're gonna try one more time for me, okay? Yes, one more time! Okay, the next person we are gonna introduce is both very near and dear to both of our hearts. She's adult.
The policy director of 350.org, as well as the 0-hour adult mentor.
So we'd like to welcome to the stage Natalie Nebe. Get your butt up here, Natalie! Round of applause!
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, I love you guys. All right. Woo! It's a tough act to follow after Reverend Yearwood. So you guys don't even know how blessed you were just now to see Reverend Yearwood speak. All right. 12 years ago in 2007, I'm gonna date myself real quick. I was a youth climate activist just like you. Okay. I was a youth. And I went to this conference, Power Shift Network conference, right? Power Shift 07. If anybody was out here, some OG Power Shifters. And I walk into the room, first person on stage is this man on stage, Reverend Yearwood. I didn't know who he was. And he's just standing on stage screaming, "Fight the power!" And then the crowd, thousands of youth, about 6,000 of them stood back and said the same thing, "Fight the power." And they just did that for like 5 minutes straight. And I didn't know what I walked into. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, okay, I found this place. I'm gonna join now. And so since that moment, November 2007, I credit Reverend Yearwood right here for recruiting me to the movement and making me know that climate activism was what I was gonna do for the rest of my life. So it is an honor that I get to speak right after him. So as Ethan said, I'm the policy director at 350.org. We were one of the people who formed the Adult Strikes Coalition to help put on strikes across the country and the world. Thousands and thousands of strikes happening around the world, and we're so happy that you guys came. And you know, we're here, we're talking about climate justice and what we want to do here for these people in this building. But there's one thing that's really special about your generation. We call them, you know, Gen Z, as we say, right? Gen Z? But one great thing is that you guys are at that age where you're about to be able to vote.
come, and obviously they got there because people voted, all right? 2020 is upon us. And to vote, you have to register to vote. Amen. All right? So all of you here, I want to know if you are old enough to vote in the next election. Raise your hand. Well, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people, and this is just one strike happening across the U.S. and across the world. Okay, so my one request for all of you and your friends, and you're striking on Fridays, you know what you can also do on Fridays? Register your friends to vote. Now y'all talk about Fridays for Future, and I love that. You know, vote for your future. Vote for your future. Vote for your future on Fridays. Register your friends to vote on Fridays, and use an opportunity when you're striking, and you're striking for the climate, to get new voters on the rolls so that you help control who enters this building next year. All right, I thank you all so much. Thank you for striking with us. Thank you so much, Ethan.
Thank you, man. Oh, we love you.
So this week, Greta Thunberg was here in D.C.
Come on.
We got to see her, hang out with her a little bit, see her testimony. Super powerful. And something that she really emphasized was unite behind the science. Unite behind the science. So we wanted to bring up Brenda, who is a climate scientist, and she's going to be talking a little bit about the science behind the climate crisis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Thank you all. It is so inspiring to see so many of you here today in front of the Capitol. Yay! So, I'm a climate scientist with the Union of Concerned Scientists, and I was one of the many authors of the National Climate Assessment, and I brought my friend here, Marcy Rockman, who is fighting for inclusion of all human history in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So, first of all, thank you for the space you all have created and have generously invited me, a little bit older, to be here. So I really honor that. Thank you so much. So you all know that climate change is real. It's us. And we have to do something about it! So many of you have been creating this movement for far longer than has been acknowledged. Jerome, many others in Washington, D.C. and beyond, frontline communities, people all around the world. And recently, of course, Greta Thunberg, who has been studying the science, she went before this hallowed halls and said, don't listen to me, listen to the science. I'm submitting for my testimony the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change special report on 1.5 degrees C, which says we are running out of time. So, I just want to thank all the adults. I am here standing with you. Science has your back. And all the adult allies, we are here to stand with you. You are the leaders. Tell us what to do. We are following you.
Thank you. Here we go. Okay, sorry, a lot of moving, going up and down the stage. Good workout. All right, we're gonna announce our next performance.
So we have another singer, songwriter, Claudia Sachs. She's gonna be performing Future of Humanity.
Do we have something? You want me to hold the mic or you got it, girl? All right, go ahead.
My name is Claudia Sachs. I am 16 years old from Richmond, Virginia. And I will be chanting, as they told me to do, the climate anthem that I composed, Future of Humanity. So, since I'm not performing this, it's very important that you guys know the words to the chorus. I need you to yell this back at me. We have to fight! We have to fight! We have to fight! We have to fight! To save our Earth! To save our Earth! We have to fight! We have to fight! So we can be the future of humanity! The future of humanity! The beaches of Miami will will be gone by 2060. The canals of Venice, Italy will be lost beneath the sea. The lights of New York City will be a distant memory. The beauty of our coral reefs will be covered in debris. We have to fight! We have to fight! We have to fight to save our Earth! We have to fight! We have to fight! We have to fight so we can be the future of humanity. The California forest will be ash before we know it. The ice from the Arctic will flood your streets and markets. The summer days you used to love will be 100 and above. Woo! The plastic that you've always used has become turtle food. We have to fight! We have to fight! We have to fight to save our Earth! We have to fight! We have to fight! We have to fight so we can be the future of humanity. We stand here to school strike to continue this whole fight. We'll change the course of history and save humanity. I can't hear you. We have to fight. We have to fight. We have to fight to save our Earth. We have to fight. We have to fight. We have to fight so we can be the future of humanity. One more time. We have to fight. We have to fight. We have to fight to save our Earth. We have to fight. We have to fight. We have to fight. We have to fight so we can be the future of humanity. The future of humanity. Thank you. That is future of humanity.
Thank you. Give it up again. Woo! Yeah.
So as we all know, this is a global climate strike. We have strikes going all over the world. Over 1,000 just in the United States.
Come on, give it up for that.
So we wanted to acknowledge the numbers that are popping up everywhere. So in France, 30 to 40,000 people.
In Germany alone, 1.4 million people.
In Australia, which was the first strike that we were hearing about last night, 400,000 people. And brace yourselves for this next one.
Yeah.
Brace yourselves for this one.
Can I get a drum roll from New York City? 3 million people! We are going to be too loud for them not to hear us. Climate justice now! Next on stage, we are bringing up my little me, Ethan. Come on, bud. Hold the mic like this, all right?
Hey everyone! My name is Ethan Vanderveer. I'm here representing the National Children's Campaign and Schools for Climate Action. In the 1970s, scientists began to ring the alarm bells about climate change. Now 40 plus years later, here we are. That's 40 plus years of inaction. The U.S. National Academy of Sciences said that, quote, "The scientific understanding of climate change is sufficiently clear to justify taking steps to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere." That statement was released in 2005, just 2 years before I was born.
When I first learned about climate change, I felt a wave of emotions. Fear, I was scared for my future that was being taken right in front of my face. Frustration, I was flummoxed. Why isn't any action being taken? I was furious, really furious. So I went into advocacy. I went to several organizations, including the National Children's Campaign and Schools for Climate Action. Those two organizations are sponsoring this event today. But time and time again, I keep seeing how our decision makers aren't acting. Why can't our leaders listen to us? Why can't they choose democracy? Why can't they do their job? Speaking of their job, the definition of a representative is a person chosen to act or speak on behalf of a wider group. So, in the 116th Congress, 9,621 pieces of legislation were introduced. Only 203 had the words climate change in them, even though that 70% of adults, 90% of kids believe that climate change is real and happening. That is not okay. When I was on the Hill, a senator's staffer told me that his boss would not vote to pass the Green New Deal because he thought it would hurt the economy, even though that 64% of his constituents think that environmental protection is right now more important than economic growth. That is not okay! It is not okay when a senator from Oklahoma brings a snowball into the Senate floor saying that climate change is false and a hoax, while yet 62% of his constituents think climate change is real. This is what I call failure to represent, and it is happening in our decision-making offices. So leaders, act on climate change, vote for the people, or get voted out.
Vote them out! 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 Vote them out!
So next we have an amazing organizer for our strike. She's going to introduce herself, Khadija Kokar.
Come on, Khadija!
Hello! Woo. Okay. My name is Khadija Kokar, and I'm so glad to be here with you guys today. Make some noise! Woo! Last year, on December 17, 2018, there were 2 strikers in the U.S. One of them was Zane Cowie in New York City, and one of them was Callan Benson right here in D.C. And look at how big the movement is today! Look how many of us are just in D.C. But when we talk about climate change and when we talk about the climate crisis, we cannot forget to involve people of color and marginalized communities in the conversation. Because we are fighting for our future, but so many people today are fighting for their present, for their right to live today, tomorrow, the next month, and the next year. We need to use the privilege of this movement and the privilege of the platform that we've gained to elevate the voices of marginalized communities across the world. And when we think about people who are affected by climate change, we don't like to think about people in our own backyard. In DC, for example, all of our toxic waste and trash is traveled across the Anacostia River into landfills that are systematically placed in communities of color. It is not a coincidence that according to the EPA, Black Americans are 3 times more likely to die from air pollution than their white counterparts. This is not a coincidence. And this is seen all around our country, from Flint, Michigan, to the North Dakota Access Pipeline, to South Bronx. This is environmental racism, and we must acknowledge the issue. We must acknowledge that we have to use this platform
in order to address these issues and fight for all humanity. We cannot just whitewash this movement and address people who are afraid of the future. Because this is not going to affect the future for all of us, because it's affecting the present for so many right now. Well, so as we move on today, I really hope that we continue this momentum and we continue bringing voices of color and people on the front lines into this conversation, because enough is enough, and the people who have been fighting this fight for centuries are not getting the voices they deserve. The people are being voiced, their voices are being erased by people who are worried about their future. While we worry about your future, we have to worry about the present. We have to realize that this is not normal, that environmental racism should not be a thing, that systematic racism should not be a thing, and we need to fight against it. Because fighting for environmental justice is fighting for human rights, and we need to fight for every single human being on this planet, no matter your age, no matter your race, no matter your gender or any other identity of yours. We need to fight for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Khadija. Big round of applause for Khadija.
What do you want me to do?
So next up, we have an amazing artist who organized a lot of the artwork you see here today with me. All these amazing puppets. We see these puppets of fossil fuel executives.
Boo!
Yeah,
we hate them.
We hate them. So Raina helped coordinate that with me and all the other artwork, so she's going to be speaking up here. Give it up for Raina Hatcher.
Oh my gosh, okay. Hello everyone! My name is Raina Hatcher and I am only 16 years old. I am here to speak for the trees and all other life on Earth which cannot speak. We are killing our planet, not just for the human race, but everything on Earth. We are destroying habitats, poisoning water, polluting air we need to breathe, and ruining our chance of having a future. We are only one species who is going to be responsible for the destruction of millions of others. This is not our planet to take. As humans, we seem to enjoy blaming other people for our problems. But if everyone lived the way we do here in the United States, we would need 5 Earths to provide enough resources for everyone.
Come on, period.
Period. Pollution is so bad that our geological record will be made up of plastic. We will go down in history as the plastic age. The destruction we created is going to be our legacy. In the last 10 years alone, we have made more plastic than in the century before that, and plastic is only one part of the human impact. I want you to take a breath. And one more, please. Plankton produces the oxygen you need for every other breath that you take. Because of climate change and ocean acidification, the plankton population is practically half the size it was 50 years ago. The future of not just my generation or the next, or even the human species, but all life on Earth is in our hands. I am a coordinator of Extinction Rebellion Youth, and we are fueled by love. Love for our planet and all life on Earth. We must disrupt the peace. We do not have time to be polite. This is a revolution. We must act now. The thing is, we are not only killing other life on Earth, but ourselves. We live here too. Around the world, people are already suffering from the growing effects of climate change, and it is only going to get worse. We are out of time right now.
We need to unite and fight for our planet together before Mother Earth has to fight back herself. Rebel or die!
Look at this.
Another round of applause for Raina.
Come on.
So next up, we're bringing up an amazing representative, Representative Raul Grijalva. I testified to him earlier this year at the first climate change hearing that in this Congress, and Ethan was on a panel with him the other day. So we want to bring him up. He'll be joining us right now. Let's give him a round of applause for Representative Grijalva from Arizona.
Thank you very much. Jesus.
And make sure that like more recording.
Okay. Well, thank you, and I want to thank everyone involved in organizing this strike, not only here but in my hometown of Tucson and across this country. Thank you very much. You know, climate change is making natural disasters more frequent and more dangerous. And the reminder for me was just a few days ago, we went to visit Puerto Rico. 3.4 million American citizens live on that island, and over 3,000 people were killed by that Hurricane Maria. And you go back 2 years later, and the discussion about how to recover of the humanitarian needs and to build resilience for the future for the island is still a discussion that's ongoing 2 years later. That's the urgency that we see, and that's the urgency that more people should take time to look at and understand. I want to say a little bit about the good opportunity I had to meet with some of the youth leaders and have a discussion. But it wasn't a discussion. It was an opportunity to listen and to learn. And one thing that came, the lesson we all know, is that time is not on our side when it comes to the climate crisis and the need for systematic, strong, and powerful and bold solutions. Time is not on our side. As time passes, this climate crisis becomes worse and worse and worse. Indigenous people, frontline communities, environmental justice are all essential to the solutions that we need to come up with. And if you listen, what you hear from young people and from all these communities is protect all life, not just protect the profits. And I think, our actions must be bold. They must be urgent. The voices for change and for action on climate change are strong. They're multi-generational and above all young. But let's be honest. When we talk about solutions, the risk and the consequences of doing nothing fall squarely on the young people of our country and this world, and on the children of this country and this world. If we, as elected officials, do not do our part, we are reneging on a legacy and a commitment that we have to each other. For our part, the choice I think is real simple for the people in Congress, for the building behind me where I work. It's real simple. Use your power, use our power to move solutions, to change direction, and to deal with climate change. We cannot afford to just sit around and protect our power and do little or nothing. You know, I really believe that everybody talks it's an existential issue, climate change and the climate crisis, and I agree with that. But it can also be, for this country of ours, a very important unifying issue, where all of us, regardless of zip code, regardless of color, regardless of origin, regardless of gender, come together to say life is the most important item on the agenda. And I want to thank you for the education, for the learning, and for the strength that you bring to this issue. This issue is important to the American people now because of the actions you've taken and others have taken in the last few years. Congratulations for raising the bar, and now congratulations for holding our feet to the fire as your representatives to do something about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now bring it in. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Rep. Grijalva. I want to acknowledge that this one is an intergenerational issue. Thank you to all the adults, all the representatives, elected officials that are standing beside and looking to the youth for the answers. Because we are today, we are the present, we are tomorrow, and we are the next generation that has to live through this crisis. So without further ado, we want to bring up to the stage John Garamendi, from representative from California, to talk about the climate crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Do you feel the energy of the sun? Do you feel the energy of the wind? Do you feel the energy that you possess? Are you ready to use that energy to change what is going on in this building? Are you ready to use that energy to change what's going on in the White House? Are you ready for a Green New Deal? Are you ready to do the work that needs to be done to change what's going on in America? Then you must never, ever give up. You must never, ever stop using your energy to save our planet. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to do the work in the precincts back home? Are you registered? Oh, I heard a few no's. If you're not registered, you're not voting, and you don't count. You have got to use your energy to change the political climate in America. Are you ready for that? You're gathered here. They're gathered in New York, perhaps 1 million. They're gathered in California. And all of us, young as you are, older as some others are, and some my age, are ready for change. We need to do it together. The energy of the sun, the energy of the wind, the energy of the ocean, but most important, the energy of the youth. Do it. Make it happen. Make it happen.
Another round of applause. Thank you so much.
Who's next?
So next we have another performer. Give a round of applause for Ella Jacobs.
Hello everyone, my name is Ella Jacobs. I'm 16 years old and I am a striker with Fridays for Our Future. Thank you guys so much for being here today. This is amazing. We are all here today because we are in a crisis. We are in a climate crisis, and a report done by the UN a year ago stated that if we don't reduce global fossil fuel emissions by 2 degrees before 2030, we are going to reach an irreversible climate catastrophe. And it is my generation that is going to be affected the most, and it is my generation that cannot even vote to fix it. But for those of you who can vote, I encourage you to think about the future of the Earth. Vote for who puts the interests of our planet and our people before the interests of large corporations. Even if you're like me and you can't vote yet, I encourage you to write a song, go to climate rallies on Fridays, start an organization or a club of your own at your school. The more we talk about this issue and have these conversations, the less complex it will seem. And together we can become an insurmountable force of change. I wrote a song called Be the Change, and unfortunately I can't perform it today, but I want to teach you a part of it so that maybe we can lift our voices together, so that those men and women in the Capitol with the power to create change can hear our call to action. So I'm going to sing the chorus, and I'm going to need you to repeat after me. What do you want to leave behind? What do you want to leave behind? What are we gonna be remembered for at the end of our lives? What are we gonna be remembered for at the end
to make a change. So we have to make a change. You guys sound beautiful, thank you. Continue to fight, because if we are going to change anything, we need to start by believing in change. By being here today, you are already starting to create it. Thank you so much.
It's a little hard getting up on the stage all the time. Next we have Alyssa Wiseman, who is one of the co-leads for the Zero Hour DC chapter. If you're interested in getting involved, definitely hit her up. So she's going to be speaking next. Big round for Alyssa.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out today to fight for our future. Each and every voice is necessary to bring change. My name is Alyssa Wiseman, and I am here as a concerned citizen. As a child, I should not have to worry about my future, but my future is in jeopardy. All of our futures are in jeopardy. Your children's futures are in jeopardy. We have only 11 years to rectify decades of damage that we have inflicted on our planet, and only 18 months until some damages are irreversible. We no longer have the luxury of time. We do not have the luxury of gradual change. We are in the midst of a global emergency, and we must act fast if we want to survive. Many areas of the world are on their way to becoming uninhabitable, but most of those areas are not on U.S. soil. Like most issues, the climate crisis will disproportionately affect the marginalized, the impoverished, and the voiceless. People all over the world who are already struggling to get by are now experiencing shortages of water, shortages of food for their children, and unbearable heat waves. I am here to speak for the people who will be affected by the refugee crisis. I am here for the people who are going to lose their livelihoods due to the climate crisis. I am here for the people who are suffering and dying because of our country's decisions. It is time for us to fight back. We can no longer sit back and wait for policymakers to bring change, to even acknowledge that change is needed, that the climate crisis is real. We must be the change. As a co-leader of Zero Hour DC, I want to embolden the voices of children, because we are the ones facing this new reality, the reality that our world is no longer safe for us. If we want to survive, we must take action. I want our policymakers to see the faces of the people they are condemning to death. And I want them to hear our cries. It is now or never. Thank you for your time.
So next up we have a student from Pakistan. His name is Noval. He's coming up now to speak.
Hello everybody. My name is Noval Alvi and I'm an exchange student from Pakistan. I arrived here no longer than 3 weeks ago, and I decided to come down here and say a few words to let you know about the extent of your influence across the world. I come from the country that is one of those countries that has been impacted the most by climate change. In 2015, our largest city, Karachi, was struck by a heat wave with temperatures reaching as high as 120 degrees and took the lives of 2,000 people. And yet, we didn't have a single clue of what was happening. Or perhaps we did. Our youth did. I was an environmental management student before I came here. And I had millions of other students who were studying the same subject across the country. We knew what was happening. We understood the science. Not that you need to study the subject in order to understand the science, but the point is that we were studying the climate crisis and yet we never bothered to act. And yes, I use the word we because it includes me as well, and I'm not going to lie and hide the fact that I didn't do anything as well. However, after coming here and witnessing the initiative that you all have taken to solve the climate crisis, my eyes have finally opened. But I'm not here to tell you that. I'm here to tell you that since the climate strike last Friday, you have opened the eyes of millions of other young people living 7,000 miles away from you. And as I speak right now, the Pakistani youth is organizing the country's first major climate strikes in 25 different cities. I'll be honest, I had witnessed a climate strike on the very first day of my arrival to the United States. I was a little intimidated, but now I have realized that this is an emergency and it needs to be dealt with that way. And so I assure you that when I go back home 9 months from now, I will make sure that our voices demanding climate justice do not weaken until they are heard. And why is that? Why is that? Because as far as I know, the gases released from our factories and our engines and our cars do not need visas to cross borders. Thank you.
Come on.
All right.
We did it. All right. Thank y'all so much for being here. My name is Jonah Gottlieb. I'm the Executive Director of the National Children's Campaign. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you for being here. At the National Children's Campaign, what we do is we fight to make sure that every single elected official is fighting for the 74 million children who live in this country. We deserve representation in our government, we deserve a voice, and we deserve to have people fighting for us. And that is why I'm so pleased to introduce Congresswoman Kathy Castor from Florida, the chair of the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. And Congressman Jerry Nadler from New York. And they're just going to say a few words about what it means to have all of you here with us today. Thank you.
Awesome, Jake. And hey, climate strikers. You all are looking awesome. So I'm so proud of you. You're right in between the White House and the U.S. Capitol. I would call this Inaction Alley. I'm tired of inaction, aren't you? Yes. Over there in the White House, we have a president who has said that climate crisis is a hoax. He's rolling back clean energy standards. He's rolling back fuel economy. He wants to remove the United States of America from the landmark International Climate Accord that was forged in Paris. On the other side of Inaction Alley, you've got the United United States Senate that's controlled by the GOP. You know what GOP stands for? Grand Oil Party. But your generation is demanding that this Congress take action. Isn't that right? This week, we had a historic hearing here on the House side where we had Greta Thunberg and other youth climate activists come. And you know what she told us? She said, follow the science. It's not that difficult. Follow the science. So that's what this Congress needs to do. It was the House of Representatives that took the first major step when it comes to climate action in the decade, when a few months ago we passed my bill, the Climate Action Now Act, that simply says we're going to stay in the Paris Climate Agreement. But that's not good enough, is it? That's the bare minimum, isn't it? Yeah. So here's what we've got to do. We are developing the Climate Action Plan for the Congress. We're going to roll it out in March of 2020. It's going to borrow from the Green New Deal. It's going to incorporate all of your ideas. We need your help. We need your help to move in Action Alley into Action Alley. Do it, do it. So what Greta Thunberg said is she said, and I looked down here to the Lincoln Memorial, and she said that this time and this place reminds her of what Dr. Martin Luther King and our colleague John Lewis had to say when they marched for justice decades ago. It was a youth movement, just like this is today. You know, a lot of people say that you give them hope, and that's great and all, but what you are doing, you're actually giving us a job to do. And that job is bold climate action. So to this Congress, this President, to all of the policymakers here in Washington, this generation is rising to the challenge of the climate crisis. We need to rise with them. Thank you, Jacob. I got it.
Thank y'all so much. Next up, just real briefly, Congressman Jerry Nadler.
That's
for the cameras, this one for the speakers.
Thank you very much. We talk about a climate crisis, and indeed it is a climate crisis. But people have no idea how great a crisis it is or how pressing it is. People think, well, the sea levels are rising. It'll cost us $100 billion to relocate. A few million people will drown in Bangladesh and India, and that's bad enough. But it's much, much worse. Much, much worse. I have a 13-month-old granddaughter, and when I look at her, I get terrified. Because I don't know if human life will survive 50 years. We may face, the climate scientists tell us, that we may face the 6th mass extinction in the history of the globe. If the oceans acidify, which they're beginning to do, it will destroy the entire food chain, and essentially all that will be left will be bacteria and maybe some plants. And none of us, none of our children, no mammals, no animals, except for amoeba. This is what the scientists tell us we face in the next 50 years. We have to stop this. The Green New Deal, absolutely. We have to do that. And I'm very glad to see all of you here today, because we have to start the pressure campaign to get rid of those ignoramuses in the Senate and the ignoramus in chief. The ignoramus in chief in the White House. You know, Donald Trump says he knows better than all the scientists. He knows better than all the scientists. His gut tells him better. But what if he's wrong? Is he willing to gamble all of human life on his gut instinct? The answer is yes, he is. And that's why, among many other reasons, we have to change who's there in the White House, and we have to make sure that people feel the depth and the immediacy of this crisis, which is approaching us much more rapidly and much worse than the scientists even told us 20 years ago and 10 years ago. So I'm glad to see you here, because half measures will not do. We are facing a crisis. If we had a world war, God forbid, the country would mobilize. This is more important than a world war, and the country must mobilize, the world must mobilize for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. We're so grateful to Congressman Nadler, Congresswoman Castor, and all the other members of Congress who have joined us here today. We had many more who would want to be here, and due to some scheduling commitments, we couldn't get everyone here. We are grateful for the ones that are here. We hope that more will be arriving, and so we are just saying a huge thank you to all of them for all of their work and for being with the youth today. Next up, I'd like to introduce a very special man, Ronaldo Pearson. On August 6th, he started marching in Atlanta, Georgia. And he walked from Atlanta to Washington, D.C. And now, 49 days later, he is here, he is ready, he is with the youth, he is with the movement, and he is ready to work with us. Thank you, Ronaldo.
And the one thing we did right was the day we started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. That's one of the rallying freedom songs of the civil rights movement. And you know, there have been many parallels drawn between the civil rights movement that inform our organizing today, for better or worse, but there's one major distinction that I have to make. They were organizing under a moral urgency. But today, for the first time, we are organizing not just with a moral urgency, but with an existential urgency. Never before has humanity had a finite deadline for our extinction. So that's why, among other reasons, I have decided to dial 911 on American democracy. Dial 911 on political corruption before it kills us. And that's why I started on Tuesday, August 6th in Atlanta, Georgia, because that was the 54th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, which is important to note. In 2013, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act, which makes our generation the first generation to witness America become less democratic. So that's why I have walked now some 1.5 million steps, over 700 miles, because no matter, thank you. Yes, my ankles are really tired, my body is tired. I've got quite the tan line, as you can see. But it's important, why? Because no democratic struggle in American history, from the American Revolution to the Civil Rights Movement to women's suffrage to marriage equality, no democratic struggle in American history has been won without the weapon that Dr. King calls the sword that heals, non-violent direct action. And more to the point, there's something called this Declaration of Independence, where we see that it talks about, right after that famous line of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it says at any point where our safety or happiness is compromised by those in power, who it says gets their power from the consent of the governed, then we have the power, we the people have the power to abolish or alter that government. So I gotta say that as I walk these backcountry roads through Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia to get here, there were more than a few occasions that challenged my hope. And I've got to note the rich irony of me dialing 911 on our corrupt and broken democracy, but more times than I can remember, 911 was dialed on me for walking while black. But when I heard about this climate strike, when I heard about how Generation Z and millennials were coming together to strike across the world, it gave me so much pep in my step. It literally boosted my spirits, and I decided at that time that I would have to add a few miles to my journey every day, because there was no way I was going to miss this. They call our generation lazy and entitled. But I walked 700 miles, and you guys are striking right now. Data just came out recently that it was our generation that, for the first time, outnumbered every other voting bloc in this past 2018 election. So we are here to remind those in power that the power of the people always, always, always outpowers the people in power. And I'm here to remind you that yes, this is an emergency, but no matter what the issue is, no matter what your sickness is, existential or not, it cannot be addressed until we address the pre-existing condition of our broken and corrupt democracy. So that's why on tomorrow at 2 p.m., I will be sitting with others, sitting in on the steps on the other side of this Capitol, sitting in civil disobedience, civil rights movement style, until Washington heeds this emergency to protect our right to vote, no more voter purges, to make our elections secure and competitive, and to end political corruption. I don't have to tell you that lobbyists, the fossil fuel industry's lobbyists, have spent some $1 billion since 2015's Paris Climate Accord to block climate action. To the point that even now, you have young Republicans who are pushing their leaders, according to Frank Lutz, the prominent pollster for Republicans, that we're sick and tired of the Republican stance on climate change. So this is what this is about, because no matter what your issue, no matter what your sickness, we can't fix these existential threats until we fix this democracy. That is to say, All of these issues assume that we have a fully functional democracy intact to address them. So I'll leave you with this. If just half this crowd meets me at 1 p.m. for nonviolent direct action training on the other side of these steps tomorrow, then at 2 p.m., I can guarantee that we will make history for the largest action of American civil disobedience this century. You can check us out at www.democracy911.us. And with that, I'll leave you with this quote from Rabbi Maimonides. The world is equally balanced between good and evil. Your next act will tip the scales. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronaldo. Thank you for that.
Again, I want to thank all of you for coming out. We still have, this is the end. I'm just thanking all of you for coming out and staying in this heat. The climate crisis is a personal issue. There are names behind each disaster. There are names behind each death. There are names behind each climate policy. So I want everyone to put their signs up and start chanting out the names, why they're here, why they're striking. I'm striking for my mom. I'm striking for Nadia. I'm striking for Nina. I'm striking for Sophia. I'm striking for Ari. Everyone, put your signs up and tell me who you're striking. Why are you striking?
Why do you strike? Why are you striking?
Why are you striking?
Scream at the top of your lungs. Why are you striking?
Climate justice now! I don't hear you guys. Come on, louder. I want you to all acknowledge that this is history. This will be in the books. This is a pivotal moment in the climate movement and is making a change for the better. And without further ado, let's introduce our next speaker.
Our next speaker is Sophia Geiger. She's a student organizer. She is part of Fridays for Future USA.
Hi everybody, first of all, I'd like to apologize. There has been a lot of screaming these past few weeks. So if my voice sounds a little hoarse, I'm screaming for my life, that's why. My name is Sophia Geiger. I'm a national coordinator with Fridays for Future, and I'd like to send my love to all the other Fridays for Future strikers around the world that stuck with us, planned with us, and built a movement with us. Today is the day that we make history, and today is the day that we take back our futures. As I'm standing here looking out over this amazing crowd, it's literally, there's so many people, I was freaking out. As I'm standing here looking over this amazing crowd, I am so thankful to be standing in solidarity with so many people who realize the severity of this crisis, who understand that there are lives hanging in the balance, and we have no more time. This is the moment our future will be decided. This is the moment we as a country, we as a world, can choose to sit back and watch the climate crisis reach a breaking point, or we can choose to jump into action. We can claim that the lives lost so far do not warrant action. We can claim that those lives in danger do not warrant action, or we can choose to stand up for our futures and stand with those already on the front lines of the climate crisis. We can choose to fight back with everything that we have. For too long, the people fighting this crisis have been ignored. But now, together, we finally have a voice, and we cannot let this moment go. Today we have proven that our government may be powerful, but the real power in this country lies in the hands of the people. We are the ones with the power. We are the ones in the streets. We are the ones making change. Many of our world leaders seem to think that we need to find a middle road between basic human rights and further padding the pockets of the privileged few. They think that this isn't black and white, action or inaction. They think they can bide their time and continue to sell our future to the fossil fuel companies and members of the 1%. But the millions of people marching around the world today, they know better. The people standing here today, we know better. We know that the change that we need cannot be found within the confines of our broken bias system. We need change that spans beyond party or country lines, change that is beyond policy or legislation. We need change that will shake the very foundations of our society. This change will be uncomfortable, maybe even scary, but this is the kind of change that our only option. And this is why we are here today. This is why we take action every single Friday. Why we take to the streets, why we keep taking to the streets, why we have come back here today, why we will keep coming back until we are not ignored any longer. This is the kind of change that cannot happen in just one strike, and that is why we need you. We need you to join us every single Friday. We need you to join us, whether it be striking from school or in school, whether we are silent striking or yelling in the streets. We need you. We refuse to continue with business as usual because we know that is a death sentence. We refuse to allow lives to be stolen and futures ruined. We are striking for our lives, and we will not be stopped.
Hey guys, for everyone who's kind of interested about all the specific reps that are coming, there's a vote that's happening right now, and that's why they're still stalling. So hopefully if time works out, they will be coming, but it's because the vote's been held back and they've been voting inside the Capitol for so long. It was supposed to end at 11, but it's gone over, just to say that.
We really apologize.
We apologize for that happening. We appreciate you all for being here.
Yes.
So next we have two sisters. They are part of our organizing group. We have Eleanor and Rosie.
Hi, my name is Rosie Clemens Cope. I'm 11 years old. We are here because our parents trashed the planet, and it's up to our generation to save it. Greta inspired me to lead walkouts at my elementary school all last spring. Because storms, floods, fires, and droughts fueled by climate change are killing people all over the globe. Our oceans are choking with trash, and the 6th mass extinction is well underway. And the government does nothing. Our schools don't teach us, and our parents are silent. But scientists say we only have 11 years left to avoid a climate catastrophe. We need to have 0 carbon emissions by 2030, when I'm 21. So I'm asking you to do 3 things. First, start Friday for the Future at your school. It's more than a walkout, though. It's a teach-in. Because what you say to your friends might be the only thing that they know about climate change. Second, climate activists need to support other social movements too, because any fight for justice is your fight too. So when kids rally for gun safety or for LGBTQ+ rights, or when teachers ask for livable wages, get your butt out there and support them. And they will support you too. It's called solidarity. Third, the November 2020 election is coming, and we need to clean out the trash. Find a candidate who is good on climate change, doesn't take oil money, and canvass for them door to door. And make sure your older siblings vote. Whose side are they on anyways? If you fight for the children by teaching them about climate change and about solidarity, if you fight for the children by demanding that politicians get us to 0 carbon emissions by 2030, if you fight for the children by getting involved in our fight to have a future, we will save the world. Are you in? Now to my sister, Eleanor Clemens Cope.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Clemens Cope, and I'm 15 years old. You know what sucks? The fact that we have to be out here doing what our parents and our politicians should have done 30 years ago. End the climate crisis! Shame on them that the government allows dirty energy companies to profit from stealing our future. Shame on them that our future holds tens of millions of climate refugees. Shame on them that they trashed the planet. So I have a message for our parents and our politicians. You are not free to ignore this crisis. You owe us a moral debt. Get out here into the streets and stand with us as we fight to get our futures back. We are striking for climate, for jobs, and for justice. Strikes show our power through our unity. Because kids from Stockholm, Sweden, to Sydney, Australia, to Seoul, South Korea, to Cape Town, South Africa, are leading Friday strikes to call for climate action. We are demanding generational justice by resisting business as usual. This is also a strike for jobs, because what if we pass the Green New Deal? That would mean millions of workers in good-paying union jobs building thousands of new energy-efficient schools, buildings, and power grids! This is also a strike for justice, because we stand in solidarity with the Black and brown communities that are disproportionately affected by the climate crisis. We will embrace anti-racist policy as environmental policy and restorative justice for Indigenous communities. And we're going to need enough courage to speak truth to power, enough solidarity to win every strike, and enough hope to keep us going. This is an uprising.
Hello, hello. So we wanted to both make an announcement on behalf of 0 Hour, International Indigenous Youth Council, Sunrise, U.S. Youth Climate Strike, and the National Children's Campaign. On behalf of those organizations.
We hear that politicians, that baby boomers, all these people call us Generation Z, the last letter of the alphabet, because we are going to be the last generation to survive. But no, we refuse to take that. We refuse to be the last generation. We are not Generation Z. We are Generation GND, Generation Green New Deal. We refuse to be the last livable planet. Oh shoot, give me a sec. Fuck. We refuse to be the last generation to thrive. We are gonna give it to the generations to come. Oh gosh, I'm done. Passing it on. Thank you guys, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.
We are Generation GND, those organizations, we are Generation GND. We are announcing the era of the Green New Deal on behalf of 0 Hour, International Indigenous Youth Council, Sunrise, U.S. Youth Climate Strike, and the National Children's Campaign. We want to focus on elements of the Green New Deal framework, including respect of Indigenous land, a just transition to 100% renewable energy, environmental justice, protection of biodiversity, and sustainable agriculture. So thank you all for listening to us. Now next up we have Ari Rubenstein, who is coordinating all of the parachutes that we have today. And if you all look back there, right over there, you see that giant parachute, that 100-foot parachute?
No future, no action.
No future, no action.
No action,
no action, no future. No action, no future. We're gonna have Ari speak about the parachutes.
Hi everyone, my name is Ari Rubenstein, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Mother Earth Project, Parachutes to the Planet Project. We've been providing all the parachutes you've been seeing today. We started the project in 2015 and have distributed over 2,000 parachutes around the globe. As you can see, parachutes around us, communities decorate their parachutes with artwork and individual concerns about the climate crisis. Looking at the parachutes is like reading a story. Looking at the parachutes is learning about the devastation of deforestation in Zimbabwe, the rising waters of the Marshall Islands, the dwindling salmon populations in Oregon, and the political corruption in many African countries. Today we are here among some of the most dedicated climate activists in the US. We are a powerful group demanding bold changes in our government, which unfortunately is reluctant to listen to the science of the United Nations scientific reports. When you hold these parachutes today, Think of the hopes of Tosin from Nigeria, who states, "Thank you for giving the vulnerable communities and unheard victims of environmental degradation a voice. Thank you, Mother Earth Project, for giving the dream a leap." When you hold these parachutes today, think of Action, who wants to use the parachutes to spread environmental action across her country of Azerbaijan. When you hold these parachutes today, think of Kathy from Canada, who with dozens of parachutes displayed at the Canadian Parliament was part of the change when its government recently passed carbon pricing legislation holding polluters responsible for their actions. Today, we are galvanizing and helping to create the largest family in the world. Here amongst you are parachutes that speak from all corners of the globe. They plead with you to take action, both individually and collectively. They ask you to open your eyes and see the beauty of their artwork and the beauty of Mother Earth. Thank you.
So we're going to end off today with a chant. If I can have all the organizers join us up on stage. Ready?
Yeah!
No action, no future, 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 no action, no future. What do we want? What do we want? Now. What do we want? Climate action. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate action. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Climate action. When do we want it? Now. Whose air? Our air. Whose air? Our air. Whose water? Our water. Whose water? Our water. Whose earth? Our earth. Whose earth? Our earth. Whose life? Our lives. Whose lives? Our lives. Give it a round of applause. Thank you all for coming. Let's keep this momentum going. Go back and organize in your local area. Thank you so much for all coming. Woo!
There are climate change rallies happening across the U.S. today. New York Congressman Jerry Nadler tweeted out this picture saying climate change is real and it's already here. Urgent, bold action from our federal government is required to ensure a stable climate and healthy atmosphere for future generations. We must act on climate this Climate Friday. I'm in awe of those participating in the climate strike. Vermont Senator Patrick Leahy tweeted out, The plaza at City Hall in Burlington is overflowing with people and with the energy they are bringing for the climate strike. And Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley tweeted, "Young people have grown up in the midst of a climate crisis, and it's our job as lawmakers to turn their unprecedented activism into unprecedented legislating. To my young constituents in Boston, I see you, I hear you, and I am fighting for you every day in Washington."
Well, Friday's protests come ahead of next week's UN Climate Change Summit, as Samira was just saying there in New York, where world leaders will discuss how best to address global warming. Here's our science editor, David Shukman.
A stark reminder of what the protests are all about. For these people on a Pacific island, it's a matter of life and death, of whether their country can actually survive in future. As the planet heats up, the seas rise. And for millions of people in low-lying communities, the threats are already extreme and they're set to become much worse. I saw for myself 2 weeks ago how the ice of Greenland is melting, adding to the level of the oceans. And scientists fear that more melting will follow. All the time, human activities keep adding to the problem. This is Indonesia right now. The fires are immense, like in the Amazon, and they release carbon dioxide into the air, and that makes the rise in temperatures even faster. The challenge is that the world is on a course towards dangerous levels of warming. The global average temperature has already risen by 1 degree Celsius over the last 150 years or so. And scientists say 1.5 degrees is the maximum safe level. Anything more risks a range of damaging impacts. But we're currently heading towards a 3-degree rise by the end of the century. And that's even if all the climate promises made by governments are kept. If nothing's done, some fear an increase of 4 degrees with potentially catastrophic results. So what can be done? Well, the UN wants more renewable energy, like wind turbines. Today, the British government approved hundreds more, and they'll cost far less than expected. In the same way, the price of solar power has fallen. And the UN is hoping the summit next week will see new promises to build more installations like this. But hard facts remain. Much of the world depends on coal, the dirtiest of the fossil fuels, and moving away from it is difficult. And leaders, including President Trump, support it. There'll be a struggle ahead. David Shukman, BBC News.